Hello, everyone watching. To those of you who are new to Mania World Cup, to those of you who have been watching for years, to those of you who are playing, to those of you who are just spectating. My name is Mint, and I'm the map selector, or the main map selector for Mania 4K World Cup 2025. And we have something really special in store for you this fine morning, evening, wherever you are. We have a qualifier showcase, and this is the first stream of the Mania 4K World Cup 2025. And we're just gonna run through all of the qualifier maps that players will be playing next week, and that will sort them into individual bracket seeds, and the top 32 will be placed into a bracket that will determine the rest of the tournament. Again, my name is Mint. I'm here joined with Alexire. How's it going, Alexire? Bye.
Hey everyone, I think it's going well. You know, I'm looking forward greatly to what this year has to offer, so it is very exciting on that front. You know, the teams this year look very, very scary, so I'm super curious to see what's to come.
Absolutely, and with scary teams means scary map pools, doesn't it?
Indeed. I believe the pools, I don't remember if they are harder or easier this year or like relatively stagnant, but I do know that without a doubt they are challenging. So I believe we should get into that and see where it takes us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I do want to note that I will say, in my opinion at least, in my humble opinion, of course, every person's opinion on this will differ, but I do think that generally the map pool will be around the same difficulty as last year. We didn't want to make it more difficult or like more easy. But let's just get right into it. I know you guys are itching with excitement for this.
Okay. Let's go.
Yeah, this is Ichiyaku by Lane. This one's really interesting because there's just a lot going on here, especially like it's very different from like maybe what you'd expect for last year. And
It is.
Yeah, it's just like very bursty, very mini-jacky, and then it kind of throws things at you that you won't really expect. And like from what you see in the first half here with these mini-jacks, with these bursts, it kind of goes a little chaotic near the second half, I would say.
Yeah, I do think compared to last year, it is quite the different approach, which might be a bit off-putting for some, but at the same time, I do think that the difficulty does match that same area it's trying to achieve.
Absolutely, and as we start to get into this sort of really mini-jack heavy section, and then this kind of like break section with the triples here, we did see a few instances, maybe one or two, of 3-note jacks, and that's definitely something to watch out for later on. That comes back to bite you if you don't pay attention.
I do believe this is quite on the short side, but that doesn't mean much because there really is just no room for breathing throughout the entire thing.
Right here. Yeah, that's one.
Another one, if you know, wasn't enough, but I do believe
in my opinion, huge choke bait, potential choke bait for these teams, in my opinion.
I mean, as you can tell in the BPM length or section right here, it says it varies quite a bit, so the whole predictability of everything it has is tough.
Absolutely, it is. It's very difficult to predict what happens next unless you were really, really familiar with the song. So yeah, I mean, with that, it is very short, especially compared to last year. So
Yeah.
good luck to teams on this one.
With that, we'll go to the next stage, which would be the first hybrid.
Yeah, this is our first hybrid FM synthesis experiment cut version by Alexar and Guden. This is a collab. This one's really interesting because, I don't know, it kind of birthed itself out of thin air maybe like a week or two. No, it's definitely 2 weeks ago. Nothing longer than that.
Yeah, it was kind of out of nowhere, but I do think I really like how it works. It is quite on the jacky side, as you can expect from the hybrid 1 slot for qualifiers. But I think most uniquely that should be pointed out is the rice difficulty is more prominent than the long note difficulty.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm noticing that the showcase does not have the OD and HP values for these maps. I don't remember them off the top of my head. I remember that the previous one was 8.5. This one, I think, was 7.7, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I also don't remember, but I believe with how it works is it's just a collab. Guden does have more of the LN heavy sections while I was more on the rice part, but I do think that despite the difference, it does balance out pretty nicely, and it especially contrasts with our other hybrid slot well.
Absolutely, yeah.
But
and I'll say that it is, compared to what you would expect if you were only paying attention to the qualifiers in the past year or so, then this is substantially less LN heavy than what you expect. Actually, like if you compare, especially compared to last year's routing, which was the equivalent to this one last year. It's a heavier emphasis on like the jacks and shields and some abrasive bursts which you've already seen, some short inverse burst long jacks. You know, it's a fairly straightforward structure in comparison to routing, I would say, but definitely balances out in the end, as you'll see with the second hybrid later down the line.
Yeah, we will indeed see how that turns out. Yeah. Not much to point out aside from the structure, but with what we have here, it does quickly go back into this more rice-heavy section. It does have more LNs incorporated, but I believe the main difficulty that you will be looking out for in this last section here is the rice for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm noticing that are all of the 4-note long jacks on the left hand? That's definitely something to keep in mind if you're struggling with those.
Yeah. This does bring us to the end of our second qualifier. So, with that, we can go into the third, stage 3.
Oh yes, this one I'm really excited for this one. This is probably one of our more interesting, like, at least to talk about on stream. This is Lost Lost Lost. I'm sure people are at least familiar with the song, given that this is Osu after all. I mean, it's a very sort of well-known anime, and LN density, LN coordination. This is a map by Mysterion.
Yeah, that is, you know, I'm sure if you're any familiar with Mysterion, you would expect coordination among this kind of approach, I think. Yeah. Yeah,
it's very, very similar to Decadence. It's slightly, I would say, it's slightly denser. It has more like a continuous feeling. It's very draining, in my experience.
I know the BPM is like nearly identical to last year's.
It's identical. It's basically spot on identical. I do think that this is slightly denser, but not by much. It feels denser than Decadence by a long shot. Because of how tiring the patterns are. They're very continuous. Yeah, and they're constant. But it's not what you'd be surprised about, I think. At least given previous LN coordination qualifiers, or just previous LN coordination mid-game maps in general.
I believe. What's it? I was gonna say something. The full version, will that be? That was also charted, wasn't it, for this?
Yes, the full version was charted. It will be uploaded alongside this. So just make sure if you're playing this, you're not playing the full version, you're playing the Stage 3 version.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not too used to seeing two different difficulties for qualifiers, outside of SVs, of course, but, you know, we no longer have that. So, I guess this will take its place for now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the map just constant. The similar pattern palette throughout the entire map. So nothing that you can't be like, oh yeah, I didn't expect that to be there. This is a pattern palette you should be expecting for Alan
For sure. I believe that does also bring us to the end here. So, with that, we'll see the density qualifier next.
Yeah, and the density qualifier is super interesting.
This is an interesting one.
I can't wait to see the chat for this one, actually. And the LN density will be Future Dominators! By yours
Quite the
truly.
surprise. Well, you were the one who left, so...
Yeah, it's a huge tone shift from previous LN density qualifiers. So you'll see, like, we used to have like stuff like, I don't know, Reverence Flower, Super Enthusiastic, the one Isugo song. The name is escaping me right now. It's like Ultra Mega Happy. This is not Ultra Mega Happy in the slightest.
Well, it may not be that, but what I can say is it is density, which is very unusual for this, especially like Sharpnel, because, you know, naturally when I think of DJ Sharpnel, I think of Jumpstream or something along that lines, as, you know, anyone familiar with Dan's, as I must bring it up, that is what you'd expect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, similar to Less, the patterns are just pretty continuous overall. These are both fairly, I would say this is the territory of like consistency testing. We're really getting into consistency territory with both of these maps here.
I do believe, if I recall correctly, there's not much of a break in here, is there? Aside from one part.
Yeah, this is the only break section that you'll get in the entire song, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. As you can see, it's already slightly going back into that consistent LN density structure you know too well.
Yeah, and it's not going to stop from here. It's pretty much just the same thing that you've seen previously in the map. Nothing really new in this section. It is pretty much a repeat.
Yeah, I mean, that is to be expected, but at the same time, it is needed for this type of qualifier. So, I do believe that break does give the stamina the players need back, but at the same time, who knows what is to see with the upcoming scores.
Absolutely. I'm expecting some really high scores in this one, personally. I think with the slightly lower OD than I guess normal for LN density qualifiers, and the more straightforward nature of the patterns, I think this is going to be one of the LN qualifiers that we'll see maybe higher scores, but maybe the length of it will balance it out and knock those scores down a peg.
Yep, but with that we'll go into our second hybrid.
Yup, and our second hybrid is going to be Susanoo Habakiri by Vito. This one, honestly, it is fairly different to previous second hybrid qualifiers, but honestly, maybe that might not make much of a difference here, especially in terms of pattern. We're going to be seeing a lot of these like LN flam sort of motions within the LN section. It's very like, the LNs are very on or off. We have this like 3K section here. It's going to be a little more tricky with the LNs there. But yeah, that pattern repeats again later on. This is the section I was talking about, the Ellen flams. We got the brum, brum.
Yeah, I do think it's worth noting that this is the shortest nap in the pool, coming only in at exactly 2 minutes, so every miss counts, to say the least.
Absolutely, you really got to watch out for these sorts of patterns. They're just very, very rigid, very brutal, but it ends before you know it. So a miss will tank your scores significantly on this one.
Yes, and I do think this brings up what I was saying earlier with Hybrid 2, but this is quite the balance out, as I think the Ellen difficulty does feel much more prominent in here.
For sure, and like if you're looking for an Ellen test that wasn't a consistency test, this is probably not for you.
Yes, for sure.
Oh, watch out for this pattern, right here.
Of course, you always have to have that one choke pattern, or else, you know, what is the point?
Absolutely, and as this map closes out with the difficult jump stream patterns, I'll just quickly, just a little fun fact that the name of the song is it's about a Japanese mythical figure and the sword that slays the serpents or something like that. Pretty cool, pretty cool.
Something along those lines. But yeah, that will be Hybrid 2, but with that we go to the jump stream pick, or Rice 2.
Yup, and this is an 11-bit map. It's going to be Heisei Saikyo no Kariya. This one's really, really interesting. It is pretty similar to maybe, if you're familiar with previous qualifiers, Amen Category Generation is probably the closest comparison I can give. Although, I will say this is probably more close to various artists, if you're familiar with that one. This one is it's very anchor heavy, very trail heavy, and it's definitely not as sustained as last year's Undead Sin, but it still drains you nonetheless. And we see that small little burst of 1/6 there. We're gonna get a lot of bursts later down in the session. This is gonna be definitely something to watch out for. If you're a player who's more of like a sharpshooter, of like just churn out the jump stream patterns, this is not the map for you, unfortunately. Although we do get these long stretches of pure jump stream, we will get some tiny bursts thrown here and there. We'll have another like slightly techy section.
I mean, as expected of category fashion, as we've seen in previous years multiple times for jump stream, the approach is within the range you expect, but I do think Mint just said that it is fairly different in terms of what's it called? Not structure, or I guess song itself, because
yeah, the song is very different from Undead Sin. But yeah, it's more or less what you expect for a category song.
Yeah, it does feel more jump stream-like, but the jump stream nature does, without a doubt, fit it more than it should, because I think this is just how it should be approached, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, we did have long stretches of pure jump stream, but now we're kind of getting into like a little broken jump stream, a few bursts here and there, and yeah, I mean, this part's pretty rough if you're expecting only jump stream from this map.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it's no longer one mill bait, but if every pick is, then I think it loses a bit of value.
Absolutely, and I don't think jump streams were ever one mill bait to begin with, but I'd say 999k bait for sure. I don't think this one will see very many 999ks, if at all. Maybe someone will prove me wrong, and I do hope that's the case, but I don't expect it.
Yeah, and as it seems pretty apparent, that this is on the longer side of qualifiers as well.
Yeah,
over
this is
3
the
minutes.
longest tick. This is the longest tick, for sure.
So, yeah, you predicted correctly. Good job, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, as we close out the map, we're almost done here. Just last section of just pure jump stream, just to get that little last bit of stamina out of you before going into Stage 7, which is
Our
our last
last.
qualifier. This one, I'll let it speak for itself, actually.
Well, to say something, I believe this is Disguise's first ever appearance in MWC, and I do believe many of you have come accustomed to the name, but this is also a collab with Mint, so if you have
Yep,
anything
I
to
did
say,
the rap sections and Disguise did the core sections. That's basically all you need to know for the collab.
yeah,
Yeah, shout out Squid.
this was meant to be mapped by Squid, who unfortunately was unable to do it.
Yeah, IRL circumstances, unfortunately, but yeah, this was originally supposed to be a Squid pick, but Disguise happily took up the offer for collab. So I'm very grateful because this map turned out really, really well. Honestly, it's way easier than he took off in my opinion, but apparently some of the playtesters really disagree with me on that.
It's definitely in an interesting spot too, because the song itself doesn't have that like intense nature to it as other stage 7s have in the past.
Yeah, it's not as intense for sure. I will 100% agree on that. In terms of song choice, it's definitely not like a super consistent like brown kind of thing, which is definitely like it's an interesting change I would say, and that's not to discount the previous qualifiers of course, but I guess something new is definitely something that people will be looking for every once in a while for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see here, it's already, very tricky. I mean, it's mostly just the fluctuation between snaps and everything that makes it really hard to keep good accuracy on, which, you would expect of a techie stage 7.
Absolutely, and I mean I would say the map overall, while it is entirely dump focused, it is well dump oriented at the very minimum. I would say that this is also really techy for a dump pick.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. That's, I believe, why it makes itself so hard for what it is. But I do think it's good because it doesn't feel overcharted. It does feel like it was charted accurately, you could say.
Absolutely, and we're closing off the map with a little calmer section here, and we're gonna get back into another repeat section in just a second, and yeah, that'll pretty much be it for this map at the very least, I think.
Yep. I do believe that brings us to a close with our now 7 qualifiers.
Yeah, I think that'll be it. Yeah, I mean, what else can we really say about these maps? I mean, it's up to you guys whether it's easier or harder than previous years, but they're out there now. We're excited for you guys to play them, to set scores on them, etc. But it's all in your hands now. We're just gonna sit back and watch and work on the next few pools. That's what we're gonna do. And as for the stream, I suppose that'll be the end for now.
For now. Keyword.
For now. And yeah, okay, they're not uploaded yet. I'm getting word. I'm getting word that they're not uploaded yet, but they will be very soon.
Most are.
Yeah. Since the two of us in here in the booth have maps, we still need to upload those. So we're gonna go do that right now. Bye-bye. And
Bye-bye.
see you next time. See you next week for qualifier results and round of 32 map pool showcase.
Good luck,
Bye.
team.
Hello everyone, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back once again after such a long wait, at least in my case, to the Mania World Cup 2025. I am Juan Cristal, the old peep who's been here for way too long at this point, I feel. Joined by some new, fresh commentary by Nikor. How are you doing?
Hello, Juan. How are you doing? And lovely to be in the commentary booth with you. And it has been a very exciting weekend where all players, just have their seat, just play the qualifiers, and just performed how they could, pretty much.
I mean, qualifiers are always an exciting part of the tournament. I feel it's kind of a shame that we don't get to stream them, but it makes sense to avoid, seeds scripting, I guess, or something like that. Which, I mean, it's a bit sad we don't get to see the actual players playing, but we get to see what their strengths and weaknesses may be in the results. And that can lead us to some, thinking and conclusions on the matchups that we're going to see next weekend. We also have the map showcase afterwards, so pretty exciting stuff today. Pretty packed schedule.
Yep, so gotta get your thinking caps on when you find out what seed you are and who are you going to be facing next week. So of course we do have, I do believe, 39 teams playing for this iteration, so we will have to unfortunately say goodbye to a few of these players, but after that we will be showing the results of the other players too. So I pretty much said my part, so I guess if we can jump straight into it.
We should be ready. We're going to be starting with team number 38, unfortunately, who didn't qualify. This is the first victim, I guess. It will be Team Latvia here with a smaller roster compared to, the average team here. They managed to get place 36 on Hybrid 2, so they managed to not be bottom on that specific map, but overall, I feel the qualifiers was a bit too rough for this team in general. You can see the scores are like under 2.9 million for the most part, and even 2.8 in the case of the Alliance. So a bit of a weakness there that costed them the qualification for Mantish, 3DK, Mixter, and Karums.
Yeah, really unfortunate to see that this team is not going to be performing. I do really like more of the smaller teams. They are pretty interesting, but 36th on Hybrid 2, on our Hybrid 2, pretty good score with even all those averages as well. But when you just kind of have those scores compared to what we are going to be seeing later, it just really isn't going to be. It really isn't going to be what is going to be the qualifying angle.
But hey, that's Team 38. Let's see who's on C37. It will be Turkey. So one of the teams that actually are not debuting, or at least they played last year. They couldn't qualify, but this time they improved a little bit to C37. Last year, of course, there were a little bit of more competition. We had more teams. But now Turkey improving a little bit, managing to getting some scores every there in Hybrid 1 and LN1, but overall, again, a bit of a struggle then, especially in the Rise department, as they got bottom placement on both of the harder Rise picks here. It will have to be one more year for them Idot to get themselves into the, into the World Cup stage after the qualifiers.
Yeah, I really see potential in Turkey having a bit more of those higher scores and a higher seeding performance from last year as well. But of course, kind of struggling a bit when it does come to some of these picks. But again, it is something that you can kind of take into account and see what you can work on for next year.
Very much indeed, but that will be it for Turkey. Thanks for joining here. Unfortunately, we don't get to see the next for them, but it's going to be the same thing here for New Zealand. I think a bit of a surprise here to see a team with pretty much a big amount of history, I will say, in Mania World Cup. They got 21 last year, which is pretty respectable. It's like middle of the pack, and this time they cannot get through the qualifiers, despite having Rovitz and Blixer, two pretty good players, knowledgeable here. But they just... I think they just had this problem with the third player, really. Like, they just couldn't get their roster to perform on every single map.
Yeah, especially as you just kind of see the team size as well. Kind of losing a few players compared to what we have seen last year. So I think maybe if New Zealand gets a few more players, I think maybe they could try and improve that seed a small bit and working on their weaknesses as well. Still pretty respectable LN scores, especially on Future Dominators, getting 34th as well.
Yeah, we're seeing a team that got eliminated with a couple of 992s across the board in the qualifiers, so the level of the playfield has also gotten quite high at this point. But that will be it for New Zealand. We'll have to jump to number 35 now. It's going to be Saudi Arabia. They couldn't get there. This is I think it's the lowest seed in terms of hybrid and LN, so it's mostly like a versatility problem, I think, for this roster, because on the Rise department they were quite close to get to the qualifying range.
Yeah,
in fact, 232s.
Oh yeah, you can. Yeah, looking at those 232s, you could definitely see that they did have the physical capability. But I think when it does come to the other picks as well, coming second last in both the hybrids and LNs, definitely something you would probably want to work on, especially that in the current years now where LN is being a bit more competitive, I would say.
Yeah, people has gotten quite a bit better, I think, in LNs compared to previous years, where you could be like this one team that was pretty good at LN and take some points out of the stronger teams. Nowadays, it feels like the play has been more balanced, so not being good enough in LN is really costing you a lot, and it shows with a team like Saudi Arabia here, who struggle with everything outside of the Vice department. But into the seed 34 here, we're starting to reach the point where we're going to see the last eliminated team, and this time it's going to be Lithuania, a full roster here. Couldn't quite get there, although they being fairly close. They got 32 on LNs, quite the opposite compared to Saudi Arabia. Pretty decent anti-meta, I guess, if you want to call that. That's how we did in the old days. But struggling a little bit in the right department is going to cost them the qualification spot.
I think definitely compared to last year, we have seen a very big step up from Lithuania. Definitely showing that bigger potentials, getting a pretty decent seed for hybrid and LNs. Yet I think they might have still struggled when it does come to some of that physical capability and maybe some of that Rice as well, as we are seeing with scores they do reflect off.
Certainly, I see a couple of maps from them where they got like some low 920s, and that's the point, like that's the improvement point that they need to work on for next year, I feel, because they were really, really close. If you can't get those to like the 950, 960k, then you are talking with a team that can certainly be on the lower ground, but certainly able to qualify for next year. So hopefully we'll see some even more improvements coming from Lithuania in 2026. But for this time, it's going to be it for them. Now into the final team who gets eliminated. We have to say goodbye to our final team. And place your bet, chat. It's going to be Uruguay, and I'm very sad. I wanted this team to qualify so bad, but they just couldn't quite make it. They were right there, even though they had 28 on Rise, which is very respectable player that I recognize here. Eterna knows, quite knowledgeable, and really good Rice player in general. Wasn't enough. With the Rice, it just wasn't enough. The LN being the undoing here for Uruguay, who is gonna miss one more year of Mania World Cup.
It is very unfortunate to see, but still, this team showing really good potential, as you were saying, with some of the hybrids and the LNs. Even the Rice free score as well, managing to be a pretty big step up when we did see. But again, it's just kind of tanking a small bit on some of the other picks, kind of struggling a small bit. But I guess now, when we do make it to this point, if you haven't seen your team, it means you have qualified or you haven't signed up.
Yeah, congratulations for the rest of the teams who managed to qualify. And of course, hope to see you again next year, Uruguay and the rest of the teams who got knocked out. And hopefully they get better luck next time, because I feel that when you're like 4K points average behind the C32, that just sometimes just comes to luck, really. They were really, really close. But C32 this year, the bottom seed qualified to Mania World Cup. It's not going to be Uruguay, but it's going to be Australia clutching it, really, because I believe this was one of the last few lobbies to play as well.
Really good scores I am seeing from this team. Kind of having that pretty well balanced scores among the Rice LN hybrid, and actually managing to get a very solid hybrid 1 score for their seeding as well, getting that 23rd spot. Gonna be a team that I definitely see has great potential, especially seeing some of the rising players over the wild. I do know I am pretty familiar with Angel. Gonna be a pretty prominent LN player to look out for as well.
I mean, of course, when you're seed 32, that means you're facing seed 1 on the first matchup, which is very difficult. But we have seen upsets before, and Australia is a team that's well known for doing those. So we'll have to see if they have what it takes to take seed number 1, or potentially whoever gets them in the losers bracket if they end up losing that matchup. But hey, they made it, and that's what counts. Seed 31 now. After Australia, we're going to see Denmark, which, pretty interesting fact, Denmark with a lower average score compared to Australia, but having overall better placements where it counted. Really good score there on Hybrid 1 again compared to Australia, those were being pretty similar teams. But I feel they were slightly stronger on the Rice department, and that's what's gonna make the difference here between these two seeds.
Again, another very prominent team I'm looking at here. Having a very solid Rice 1 Hybrid 1, it seems to kind of be a common trope we have with some of the lower seeded teams as well. But I think definitely a bit of that Rice needs to be a small bit looked on, getting that 35th and 33rd spot respectively. But overall, other than that, I still think this team shows really good potential, especially with some of the players as well.
Yeah, I think this is a team that can be somewhat scary early on, so I wouldn't count them out just for being on the lower side of the department in the seed. But, I mean, Denmark has quite a bit of history as well in Mania World Cup. They missed it last year, close to qualifying, but this time they are back with full strength. And, I mean, I expect that this team is going to show some good performances. We'll have to see if that's enough to take the higher seeds. In seed number 30, though, after Denmark, it's going to be Finland. So, two relative, I guess, countries in some ways. But this time we have a very solid Rice foundation for this team. And on the other side, kind of a weak spot. I feel LNs and hybrids, they struggle quite a lot. But on the Rice department, they are looking a lot of promise. C24, it's really good. I think it's the highest we've seen so far.
Yeah, very good scores from the Rice area for Finland. I am pretty familiar with some of the players who are able. I know Tomsku and Fisu are pretty prominent when it does come to that, but I think the main problem that arises with Finland is going to be their LNs, like just kind of having a small maybe second, third player issue. I am aware that Era Ilya is a very prominent LN player, but you also kind of have two other players to kind of back up that.
Yeah, every time you see a 2.8, that's a bit of a sus score for the most part. And I see a lot of them in the hybrids and the LNs for these teams specifically. But it's also kind of wild that you have three 990k plus scores, and you have C25. That's wild to me. Rise 1, it's kind of mind-blowing in that regard. Like, the level of competition has gotten so high that not even triple 990k is going to be enough to put you in a good seed. And I think that's going to be scary for some teams, because you're entering a place where if you choke and the other team doesn't, they can take your lead. If they just go with triple 990k, you can make a difference there if you don't choke. So watch out with Finland, especially in the Rise.
Yeah, that would definitely be a very big surprise as well, I reckon. So I guess now out of the 30s, we can head on to our first 20, and it will be Guatemala. Actually, I think making their debut this Mania World Cup as well, if I'm not wrong. And
I mean, wow. Yeah, like you said. Go ahead.
And yeah, actually having a 4-player team as well. Very impressive to make a performance with only that amount of players. And that well-roundedness with some of those scores as well. Especially on the LNs, 26th, 27th, and even 25th on Hybrid 2 as well. Being able to hold their own when it does come to that. But I think the Rise definitely needs a small bit of working on.
For sure. A bit of a surprise here, Guatemala. Not the biggest of the countries when it comes to Mania, so potentially the first step they need to take in order to become a power to be reckoned. And honestly, a 4-man team making it this far, that's just great on its own. And I think they may spook some teams with their high-red LN potential, especially early on. I can see this team being a bit of a problem to some others. But surely a new team, it's always nice to see. It's refreshing to see the Mania scene just kind of, cycling through different countries, seeing new people. Gonna see what Maxolini, Hashiteru, Babo, and Miyako have to show. They have a couple more shots at the World Cup now, so we'll see how they do.
Yeah.
Speaking of, Spanish-speaking countries, we have an exciting number 28 here. It's going to be Venezuela, who missed out barely last year, but this time they are back with Edward leading the charge. Pretty old, recognizable name, at least for me. And overall, a pretty solid performance in the LNs is going to put them here.
Yeah, very well done performance by these players. Yeah, again, shorting out last year's, it might feel very nice to have that satisfaction as well, just by qualifying this year as well, especially with that LN. That LN work definitely paying off for what they are seeded. I think definitely the Rice and Hybrid as well does have to kind of be looked on a bit if they do want to kind of hold on for a bit longer in this tournament.
For sure. I mean, when you got this close to qualifying last year, making it here is gonna feel great for them. And I hope they can surprise some, because C28 you're starting to reach this point that if you lose your match on the losers bracket, you're gonna have a team that's kind of close to your seed. So I imagine we'll see some interesting battles there, considering how strong Venezuela looks for the bottom of the pack here in the LN department. I can see them taking advantage of that and pushing some teams around. We'll have to see if that's the case.
Yep, very good potential when it does come to some matchups, especially I cannot wait to see how this team does perform in a few weeks' time. So now, outside of C28, we can move into C27, where we will have Germany this year. So looking at Germany, I think they have some pretty good potential as well, not qualifying last year, but now back in action, especially with some of those scores as well. Really strong LN1 score, and some other pretty decently well-rounded scores for some of the other maps. Though I think some of the maps have to be looked on, especially with some of the Rice picks as well.
Germany looks a lot like a team that can surprise in the way that they can high roll. Like, I feel they are a team that struggles a little bit with consistency, but when they are on their A game, they are a very, very, very deadly team, I feel. Like, Medium Keg and Survey are pretty well known on the 4-digit scene. Survey not anymore. They are not 4 digits anymore, but they used to back when, like last year, I feel it was. And they are pretty solid players. They struggle sometimes with consistency, so if they can't fix that, they just struggle with that, I feel, and Rice 1 specifically getting C34. But if they can fix those issues, I can see Germany also taking some points out of the big teams.
Gonna be very interesting to watch to see how they perform. Again, I think what a common pattern with some of these teams is they do have a lot of those choke points, and especially if you kind of look at Rice 1 as well, where, you know, some players are finding some misses on it and definitely does tank their seed a small bit when it does come to that. But for the teams that do kind of thrive on that sort of thing, we will see that they have a bit higher scores. But I guess now we can move on from Germany and moving on to seed 26, and it is going to be Mexico. Pretty good scores, especially that Rice 1. Actually, I do believe that is going to be our first top 20 score we're going to be seeing for
that is true. That it's very much true. They couldn't quite improve their last year's placing, which is a bit shocking, honestly. Like, a team that got 19 on a map, they still are 27 average for Rice, which is wild to me. They are C26 though, despite not having any of the maps on the categories above 26. I think it's mostly the Rice one that's keeping them afloat in that seed. They really need to work on the LNs, especially consistency LNs, like the easier release kind of. I feel if they can sharpen that a little bit, they can also be quite dangerous. Because as you can see, their early accuracy is looking fantastically solid, and early on they can be a threat. They just need to be able to break point on an LN map or a hybrid potentially against some other teams. And I feel that they're on this weird spot that if the LNs get dense enough or hard enough, they can take points. But if the Rice gets too hard, they will struggle to compete with the more physical teams. So a bit of a weird spot for Mexico. We'll have to see how the pools fare for them. And I think that's going to be the main factor to see if they can progress further through the tournament.
Pretty much what you did say there. And I think they have the potential as well, but again, it's just really sharpening up. And they will pretty much be a gauntlet when it does come to some of those matchups as well. And that will be our seed 26. So we can move on to our seed 25, which is going to be Singapore actually. So looking at this, some pretty good scores all around, but against some that are lower than their seedings. So C19, C22, pretty good for some of the Rice picks. Again, it is just kind of Singapore faltering a bit on some of those hybrids and LNs, where they might need to work on some of those capabilities a small bit.
I mean, this is probably not the Singapore we have been used to see in the past. They have fallen quite a bit compared to the last couple of years, but they're still here. They are still, performing fairly well on mid-tier. Rice mostly has always been a strength of theirs. This time around, the competition is a bit more solid, especially on the hybrid LAN department. That's going to cost them a little bit. We'll see if they can, fight their way through. Early on, I think they will be a team to be scared against, but we'll see if they can keep up on the anti-meta / later game stuff. And otherwise, that's going to be it for Singapore. A bit of an interesting seed, honestly. But speaking of interesting seeds and progress, you have a Ukraine here, and that's a wild improvement. From 32, last year's placing, barely qualifying, to 24 now. And with only 5 players, they managed to score very, very solid scores on the hybrid department mostly. But overall, this team looks just solid across the board. Very, very consistent team.
I think this is going to be our most well-rounded team that we have seen so far. 23, 26 on Rice, 22nd on Hybrid, 24th on LN. It's going to be kind of confusing for the team facing off Ukraine to kind of know their strengths and weaknesses a small bit. So I think that definitely gives Ukraine that advantage as well.
We'll have to see. I mean, they will be happy to improve their seed here, and I think they have a fair shot to making it to the quarterfinals, really. That seed is going to help them out quite well, and I feel they're a team that could take advantage of weaknesses from the others. They are just very well-rounded in general, and that's going to help them to counter-pick against some teams, but of course, counter-picking is usually not enough to just win matches. You need to be strong yourself on something, and I feel Hybrid's going to be the thing Ukraine's mostly going to go for. But potentially early accuracy rise is also something they may be able to work with. We'll have to see. Of course, it's always very pool dependent when you get to this level. But of course, I'm going to be happy to see Ukraine progress further into a tournament. I'm a personal fan of blue and yellow, but for other reasons. But anyway, that's Ukraine. We're going to see seed 23. This will be, you know, low seed territory now if we go to the old formats. And we have Netherlands. We have a very strong Rice, by the way, here. Very, very solid. With Shoya and Toxicen, I'm not very surprised by that, but they are looking very, very, very good at Rice, especially, you know, in the later department. They are very, very solid.
Netherlands is one of those teams that I think have really good potential as well. Having those very balanced seeds as well. I think maybe just from the lower seedings probably was just from chokes, especially as we could probably see from Korea. But really, it's just a team that has really strong potential, I would say.
For sure. I mean, we have seen Netherlands having a team that upsets some points against pretty much every team because they being the masters of SVs. But now we don't have SVs anymore, so we'll have to see if they can, you know, shift this sort of niche picks into, you know, maybe Tech Rise, which I feel is something the Netherlands is fairly strong at, and they potentially get some points there. I think Corjax may also be a thing the Netherlands wants to go for. We'll have to see. If the pool support those kind of maps early on, they're going to be difficult to deal with early. And in any case, they are a very, very strong across-the-board team.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see what potential they will show this year. And that will conclude it for the Netherlands. So we'll go on to our seed 22, which is going to be Italy, actually.
Forza Italia!
Getting that decent seed improvement compared to last year. And really, that Rice 2 and Rice 3 score, very impressive Rice performances from Italy. Again, I think the LN is what does kind of weigh them down a small bit. But I think if they work on that, they should pretty much be okay and be able to maybe thrive.
I feel Italy has suffered a little bit from consistency issues in the past as well. And I feel this may also be the case this time. Like, their Rise are looking sweet. Like, especially Otonoke, that seed 13 is really, really strong for a team that is on the middle of the pack, really. And I feel that in the LN department, they could have done a little bit better. I see a couple chokes from them. So this is a team that you have to be careful. Like, I feel seeds don't tell the full story here for this team. I feel had they been maybe in a better day, they would be up in the maybe top 16. Certainly a couple places up, I think, due to their LNs being a little bit on the weaker side. Like 2-9-32 on loss. Seems a bit low for them. But we'll see if that's the case on the actual matches, really. C22, of course, is we started to enter, you know, this upset territory. Like, you're going to be facing, who's this? Like, this is seed 12, I think? That's going to be playing 22, is that right?
I think it would be around that anyways. Just
yeah, it's around there. But we're also going to see exciting matches here. Right? Like, whoever faces Italy, I think, is going to have a tricky time picking.
Yeah, I think Italy is still yet to show their full potential for now. And I, for one, cannot wait to see what they are really capable of for the next few rounds. And now for seed 21, we do have Argentina. Very well rounded from all those, and that is going to be our first single digit that's going to be our first single digit placement as well. 5th on Hybrid 1, very impressive score for C21.
It's very, very weird to see. You know, you have all these 20s on pretty much everything, and suddenly you have a number 5. That's like a wild performance there by the Argentinians, by my colleagues, I guess, my former teammates in some way, some of them at least. But yeah, led here by Nuvo. And overall, I mean, Argentina is, again, that team that always seems to be missing a third player to fill in the roster in every map, other than Hybrid 1, apparently. But this is my country, I'm always going to be rooting for them. And yeah, I feel that Argentina is a team that can high roll as well. Like, a team that struggles sometimes with consistency, but has insane accuracy early on specifically. And if they can have these high roll days, I feel they can be a problem to many teams. And they know how to play hybrids for sure.
Oh, totally. Argentina's accuracy overall is just really solid with some of those players Like, I do know that Seong is also a really strong race player along with some of the other players as well. But I think if they do kind of work on what they did struggle with, I think it's another team that a lot of players will be very interested to see.
For sure. I feel Argentina is like in this step of the process of brewing. Like this seems like a year that they're going to be used to build up their play. And I think next year is the year for Argentina. But if they can do well this time and, you know, get the hype train rolling, I feel Argentina is going to be a solid team, especially, you know, they are the CWC champions. So maybe that carries some weight to them and they want to perform better. We'll have to see.
Yep. And alright, concluding our 20s, we are going to have Peru. Still very impressive scores from them. Our second single digit placement, coming 7th on Hybrid 2, and also having some really strong LN scores. I think definitely that Rice 1 score definitely tanked them a small bit, which I think it definitely is showing a bit of problems when it does come to some of those teams managing to kind of having some of those jokes.
Well, I mean, it's kind of wild, right? Oh, there's an ambulance. They call an ambulance, but not for me. I'm not sure if you heard that, but yeah, Peru is a team that kind of spawned out of nowhere, and you know they managed to qualify last year, but on the bottom side of the seed. And this time around, I mean, they are looking super good. Like the hybrids are looking very, very solid. And in general, like if you compare this with the score from Argentina, it feels like Peru is more like a very strong team in some regards, but potentially weak early on, accuracy-wise specifically. While Argentina is looking a little bit more like a consistent team, all-rounder team. I can see Peru progressing because they are strong in things that teams tend to be not very consistent at, but Peru is. Like both hybrid scores are insanely good. And I think they are going to take a lot of hybrid points out of everybody.
Yet again, consistency, it definitely is key. And I think they just have potential all around. But I think it definitely just going to have to be their consistency sharpening up a small bit if they do want to thrive off that. But now, that concludes our 20s. Heading into the teens now, we have France. Going to be another European team.
Baguette. That's pretty much my entire feedback for this team. But nah, I mean, talking seriously, they are a very historic team. They are essentially on the same seed as last year, just one step below. But can you really judge them? The competition level has gotten so high that, again, on 2.98, it's seed 16 in Rise 1. That's just wild in general. You don't expect teams to be that good at this Bulls. But overall, very solid plays across the board. This is a team that I feel can adapt really well to the situation, whatever the situation is calling for. But it's a team that will struggle, I think, once we get into the later games. So France will need to take their chances early on and try to, you know, cause upsets in the round of 16, round of 32, you know, to progress as far as they possibly can, because I think they're a team that can fall off in the later stages quite rapidly, and they have to be careful about that. So certainly a strong team, and we'll see if they can hold their ground in the later stages.
Going to be very interesting to see if they're going to be working off that. Again, I think they just have really crazy potential with some of their players as well. Definitely knowing a few names: Flareful, Darkview, Koidex. Very interested to see how this team will perform, and especially as you said in the late game as well, where you did say that they do tend to fall off a small bit, but we'll have to see this year.
Now it's time for seed 18 then. It's gonna be no other than Taiwan, who's dropping a little bit compared to last year. This is a team that kind of surprised a lot, especially in the 4-digit scene, I recall last year, and of course in the World Cup in general. A team that kind of got them rolling out of nowhere, really. They are team consistency, really. This is a team that if you're not sure, if you're scared of choking in a map, just don't pick that against Taiwan. Taiwan is a team that just doesn't miss. They are really, really, really consistent. And that comes with benefits, of course, that you have good picks that you can make against your opponents if you're expecting them to choke. But of course, if you want a high roll accuracy, this is a team that maybe struggles a little bit. but we'll have to see once the the maps get rolling if they're going to have that problem. I mean, you see on the Rise they got 17, 17, 17. On the Hybrids you have 15, 15. So they are just across the board consistent. They just have the same scores in every map.
Yeah, along as I said with Ukraine last time, we're having those balanced seeds as well. It's going to be kind of hard to see what Taiwan do falter on. Now, looking at future dominators, kind of had that small falter, but only one seed behind compared. But I still think that might have just been a slight mishap for Taiwan. But I think if you do want to fight off Taiwan, you might have to push your accuracy a bit outside your comfort zone. So now with seed 18 out of the way, we can move on to our seed 17, which is going to be Poland, another European team.
Talk about improvements. This may be the team that improves the most compared to last year, really. Poland looking very solid again, and especially late game Rise. They are a force to be reckoned with in that aspect. Both scores on Otonoke and Heisei Saikyo are honestly shocking for a seed 17. Like 2 single-digit scores. Their Hybrid 2 is also solid. And overall, they have a pretty refreshed roster, I feel. We see a lot of, new potential, new coming potential here. And of course, we have Bajekta has been here for a while now. So a bit of an experience and newcomers here to pretty much what Poland needed to get back to their glory days. Like thinking back to like 2014 days, very, very old time. They managed to get 4th. So a team with history definitely will try to make honor to that and get as close as possible this year.
Poland definitely showing some really good improvement. I just think, as you said, that we did have some newcomers as well. I think the newcomers just kind of have to find their footing a small bit if they do want to perform the best they can when it does come to our next few weeks as well.
All right, but that's it for the lower seeds. Now we're entering into the high seed territory. Seed 16 is going to be Malaysia. So talk about a giant of Mania history, really. They managed to get 8th last time, but of course this year they are missing some people compared to last year. Notably, we are missing a very important player. I'm not sure if you guys remember him.
Oh yeah, I don't remember him. I don't really remember him either. This team again shows some really good potential, but I think it's just really that Rise consistency again does kind of falter a small bit. Like when you look at their scores, you could definitely know that they can play Rise, but their consistency might just not be there yet. But it is still a team to watch out when it does come to some long notes or hybrid picks. If they're able to kind of capitalize off that and maybe some of their consistency issues on the Rise, then I know Malaysia will be a team that will definitely thrive.
Of course, I mean, you'd really never want to face Malaysia if you are a team that is good at the long nodes, because this team is just going to take long node maps out of you. That's just how it works. So Rise teams are obviously going to have a better time against a team like Malaysia, who's like extremely good at hybrids and long nodes, but struggles with the Rise department. So this is like the kind of teams that you see these volatile matches that end up in tiebreakers or very close to tiebreakers due to them just stealing all the LNs and hybrids, but they're struggling with the Rise. Like in the past, they had a very solid Rise foundation, but this time around seems like they are missing a little bit of that. Seeing a team that has 2 single digits but a 28, it speaks about this, different skill set range that Malaysia has. So it's a team that can really win maps against everybody, I feel. But can they win matches? We have to see.
Definitely going to be very interesting to watch Malaysia. And now heading into 15, still going to be our top half. We do have another European team. It is going to be Spain. Very good C performance that we have seen compared to last year. And some very good potential seen by them as well. I think just faltering a small bit on that hybrid, but maybe that might just be more of a consistency issue, just looking at their other hybrid and LN scores. But I think if they can kind of up their game a small bit, this team does have very good potential as well.
I mean, Spain has always been this team that it's a bit of a pain to deal with. Like, they are a team that can take points out of you easily in pretty much every aspect. They are very strategic with the way they play. I feel like they know how to pick against you. You know that they're going to pick the maps that you're not the best at. Sometimes that's not enough, but this time, Spain is a very, very solid Rise team across the board. Like, in general, I think this may be the better team that we've seen so far in the Rise department. Especially early on, they are very deadly in terms of accuracy. And, you know, shoot an Ellen density map or a hybrid that has some, you know, Rise favor or Rise flavor, and Spain can just win. I feel this is a team that's going to be a pain to deal with by most teams. And they definitely have what it takes to, you know, steal Rise points against the stronger Rise sides and, you know, take points on the weaker LAN teams for sure.
Yeah, just looking at them, they have some really good potential, and very exciting to see how they are going to be facing against Malaysia when it does come to next week. Again, having some of those very physical players, I am pretty familiar with Victor and Nico777, but I think that they can kind of work on their weaknesses as well. It will be leading to some very interesting matchups as well. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure this doesn't go against Malaysia though. It's just against Taiwan. It's going to be Malaysia, Poland, and then Spain, Taiwan. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, right.
So we're not going to see, you know, the LM powerhouse against the Rise consistency machines. So we're going to get something slightly different. But this against Taiwan is going to be an exciting matchup.
Yeah, and now we can move on to our seed 14, which is going to be none other than Philippines, having quite the historical run in Mania World Cup.
Yep, Philippines is another one of those teams that has a lot of history in both Mania World Cups. You know, 4-key and 7-key. This is a very solid team. And honestly, seeing them this low is a bit scary. Like, this team looks insane. Like, I am genuinely shocked that they got seeds 14. And this is gonna go against France? I feel like I've seen this matchup happening a lot already.
Yeah, well, I think definitely. Probably it's a surprise for some people, but do not underestimate the Philippines. They have some very strong players, just looking at their lineup. Having some new players as well. I do believe Silicos is going to be making their introduction this year as well. And just looking at from their seedings, pretty well balanced, but I do believe they might have some consistency issues when it does come onto their hand. But I think if they can fix that, they have some very scary potential. Especially on some of the LNs. Of course, you do have Siloweska Els, you do have Fanter, Livet, Vubsy, Valeria. They can pretty much play everything, I guess, but really it's just going to be how they will perform their consistency.
It still sickens me to see a 2-9-8-2 being seed 15 on Rise 1. That's always going to feel shocking to me. I will not get over this. Let's go to seed 13.
Alright, looking at seed 13, we have Brazil, and they're actually going to have the same seeding as they did last year. And looking at this, I think they have a near full roster change as well, just by looking at the names. But I think, again, it is kind of the same thing with Poland, just maybe trying to find their footing a small bit as well.
Yeah, I feel like Brazil has been in this transition phase for a bit. Like, they of course had this golden generation a couple years ago with, you know, Lothus, Silifanger, Gilhamesiad, and a lot more than like Orost. You just name a lot of Brazilian players that are all insane. And this time around, we just have essentially a completely new roster, and they still are getting, you know, in the higher ends of the tournament. It's a bit of an unfortunate, I think, that they don't retain some of their older generations to maybe, you know, pass the torch along and help the new faces deal with the nerves and the struggles of playing such tense games. But even still, like, you cannot count Brazil out pretty much any time. And they have historically been a powerhouse later on, especially in the Rise department. They still are. Look at that score on Heisei Saikyo. Number 7, 2988. That's like 995 plus on all the players, which is sick. And they are C13, which, you know, teams are going to try to abuse this long node weakness, this hybrid inconsistencies. But even then, 2970 on hybrid 1, that's triple 990k. of course, it's a bit deceiving, seed 18, but they are not a weak team in that regard either. So I'm thinking Brazil is a team that if you let them scale out, they may outscale you, especially in Rise.
Yeah, definitely showing that potential as well. Yet again, I think they do sharpen up a small bit from what we have seen from their maybe mini weaknesses. It is going to be a team that is going to be pretty scary to face when we do get to see it. And now for C12, we do have, it's going to be Japan. And again, another pretty big roster change as well. Pretty well rounded as well in general too. Getting C11 on Rice, 12 on Hybrid, C11 on LM. Again, it's kind of the same thing. You don't really know what really to pick against Japan.
Yeah, Japan used to be this team that was insane on Rise and struggled with LMs, but nowadays they're just robots, basically. They are insanely consistent. And again, what is going on with Rise 1? Like, my mind's blown. I cannot wait to see who got seed number 1 on that map, by the way. Like, those scores are going to be insane. But in any case, I believe it's going to be Japan versus Argentina, which... Oof. That's also a great matchup to see, I believe. But Japan is looking insanely solid. Like, of course, dropping a little bit compared to last year. I feel they're missing a couple players, a couple faces, recognizable names. That, of course, we don't see Interlizer, which retired a couple years ago. But still, they are living up to their legacy, I think, because Japan, a very, very consistent team, and I can see them progressing quite a bit in this tournament.
Definitely showing that very big potential, along as you were saying, with some of their main players kind of missing from the roster. Of course, from last year, we are not seeing Crew K, a Father as well, which the seed is a small bit down, but that also could be from the absence of SV. You know, Japan definitely being a very strong powerhouse when it does come to that department. But I can't wait to see how they will perform this year as well, having that very balanced seedings.
No SV, no Crew K. Hey, let's see seed 11. Uno. It's gonna be Indonesia, another team that managed to improve quite a lot compared to last year's seeding. Like, sometimes jumping like 10 seeds, it's a lot, but jumping 8 seeds in this range is very difficult. To reach, you know, the top end of the seed and department, it's always going to be very tricky. And Indonesia, a team with a lot of history as well, team with players in the past that performed really well. I think they managed to get top 4 even in 4Q World Cup in the past. And now they're just a very solid all-rounded team with a very heavy preference in Rise. Like, their Rise are looking quite huge, like especially later game. But overall, I think Indonesia's accuracy is gonna be difficult to deal with by pretty much every single team in the grid.
Again, another really well-rounded team, as you were saying. Definitely a bit stronger on that Rise. Kind of looking at some of the players, especially Ray, when we do see it. But I think if they can just sharpen up again, I think it's still going to be a pretty scary team and going to lead to some exciting matchups over the next few weeks as well.
Let's go to number 10. We are almost there for the single-digit seed. It's going to be Vietnam, who also makes an improvement here. Vietnam, again, another team that's on the rising since a couple years, really. I remember they managed to qualify back in the, I think it was 2020, on the group stage in a very difficult group. And since then, they have been just growing and becoming such a team that is always recognizable and hard to deal with in the anti-meta department. You see this team struggles a little bit with Rise, but look at those hybrids and long note scores. Those are crazy good.
What an absolute powerhouse of a long no hybrid team, and maybe not even to underestimate their Rise as well, especially
early on. Yeah,
especially early game. We'll definitely see them thrive a lot when they do face their next team next week. And of course, with some new additions to some of the players, lot definitely being very familiar, very well-known mapper as well.
Well, yeah, but you have a Tridone, I think, one of the newcomers. I mean, not necessarily this tournament. I think I saw this name before, but, you know, this quite young talent that the team has. And surely, with new faces coming and looking even better than last year, Vietnam, a team that's going to be difficult to deal with. Like, I can see this team getting the semifinals quite easily if they have good matches on. Like, if they can face teams that struggle with the lane and hybrids, this team will cook.
Still definitely showing that really good potential. And now we can go into our single digits, which gonna be our number 9. We do have Russia, gonna be another European team that a lot of players are going to be familiar with, and looking at this very well balanced scores, especially on the Rice and LN, just faltering a small bit behind when it does come to hybrid, but I think it shouldn't be too much of an issue if they do kind of work on that as well.
This is the kind of teams that I would not want to face Vietnam if I was Russia. Like, Russia had this issue with chokes in the past, I feel, as well. A team that, of course, is looking to improve compared to the last year's placing, and they already did on qualifiers. And I feel this is a team that has to make good use of the Rice, really. The problem with Rice is that the competition is quite high, and usually if you struggle a little bit with the anti-meta stuff, it is more likely that you lose some points that you you shouldn't really drop. And that's, I feel, what causes Russia to get, that's one godlike tournament run that I feel they have been trying to get and being really close in a couple of years past. Hopefully this will be their year, though. They are looking solid on their lands compared to previous iterations, and surely their Rice Foundation is going to put them in a spot where they can compete with the top dogs, I feel, being seed number 9.
Definitely a big team to look out for, as you were saying. I think, again, as you were saying, if they do kind of sharpen up with some of the anti-meta stuff as well, it's going to be something that they're going to be looked out for by a lot of players that will be facing them. And I, for one, cannot really wait to see that. And now, moving on to our top seed, it's going to be our number 8 slot. We are going to have Canada, actually, getting a pretty solid seed improvement compared to last year, and very well-rounded scores again, actually getting silver on Rice Free as well. Very strong scores from Canada, just definitely seeing a ton of their potential they have, but maybe consistency might say otherwise, just looking at some of those seeds scores that kind of did tank them a small bit.
Well, I mean, I feel like Canada is looking like this team that's gonna, outscale a lot of teams, but they need to get there. Rice won, of course, they choked a little bit. Their accuracy is not looking as solid compared to the rest of the top dogs, I feel. But still, like, if they can make good use of their, high roll potential, especially in the later game, Canada is going to be a very strong team. But, who are they facing on the round of 32? Seed 8, who's going to be, I think it's Ukraine that they're going to be facing on the round of 32. So they need to be careful. I feel like the early game Canada is the weakest Canada, and they have to do their best to, get through as clean as possible so they can reach this point of the game where their, physical capabilities are going to outscale some teams. If they can get there, I can see Canada getting, a pretty good run here.
Oh, I can totally see that as well. But again, something they kind of do have to work on. Going to be some of that early game as well. But I think if they have that covered, going to be a team that can make a really strong run. Especially, I do believe they're going to be their strongest run this year as well, out of every other World Cup. But again, we can move on to our next seed. Going to be our lucky number 7. It is going to be no other than going to be Thailand, taking bronze last year, but having that slight seed lowerage. But I think overall, just looking at their scores, still being very impressive, mostly single digits, but that Rice 2, something definitely mishapped probably when it did come to that map. But I think it was kind of more of a mishap.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Thailand getting, the wrong end of the stick, I feel, choking quite hard on Rice 2 both times. I feel that if they got that score up, how much did they need? Like, if they get like a Russia level score, like that would be top 10 on that map, they will have Rice in a couple seats. Because the cool part about, Thailand, Canada, and the next seed that we're going to show up, they are like very, very close to each other in terms of rating sum. And in average score, they are like 2K away for seed 5. That's how close they are. But, you know, in those scenarios where there's so little margins, one single map that you choke a bit more than the others, and that pushes you down a couple places. And in this level of, you know, playfield, I feel that you need to push those seeds to get the better bracket. Because, you know, I feel Thailand is looking better on the early game than on the later game, so maybe it doesn't hurt them that much. But a team that struggles a little bit with the early game, a couple seeds can cost them their run, really.
Pretty much as it says, consistency is going to be key, and if I think Thailand holding on to that, I think they will definitely prove more of a threat than their seeding does show. And now we can move on to our top 6. Coming in just shy of the top 5 spot, we have Chile. Actually, still very impressive scores, and actually taking the gold on Rice 1.
First gold medal we get in the qualifier so far, I feel, right? This is the Chile's best performance, I feel. Well, I mean, they got 5th last year, but I mean, I don't remember if they got number 1 on the map before, but they were 6K off a perfect score. That's 998 average. Is that right? That's ridiculous. I mean, of course, they have Miyuchi, the accuracy god, and just in general god of the game. But still, it blows my mind that the play level got this high. Of course, they're struggling a little bit in the later game Rise department. I feel that they got a bit hard carry there by Miyuchi, but still, they got C19 in Otonoke, which is going to be difficult for them. This is a team that really wants to face the difficult matchups early on, so they can take advantage of this Rise consistency and accuracy, and potentially use their Longnar abilities to break some points.
Definitely a team that shows great potential. Like, just looking at this lineup, of course you have Miyuchi, and then you have some other players as well. Bambi FNF, NATO Mayor, Antrax, Be Free, and Mako More as well. Going to be a very scary team for anyone who does face it. Again, probably going to be a mishap that is going to be causing their C19 when it does come to Rice 3. But as you said, maybe they want to get some of the more difficult matchups when we do go earlier on. But now we can head into our top 5.
In spot number 5, we have if we were talking about Polish improvement, let's talk about British improvement here. UK. My goodness. They got seed 5 out of 38 this year after getting 16 last year. They have a huge improvement here. And overall, this is like, you have this one team that is very consistent across the board in like each of the 4 seeds brackets, I feel. UK is like the Japan of the top seed, or the Ukraine of the low seed, you know, that kind of bits. Because the UK is just good at everything. They have very solid Rise across the board, like just in general. It's a team that has insane accuracy, very good consistency. But if you think you're going to take points out of them on endlands or highways, then think twice, because they are looking insane in that department as well.
Yep, pretty much everything. Just looking at the UK, gonna be extremely well balanced, as you said. Gonna be very hard to kind of anticipate what you should pick and what you should not. And just looking off from this, I think the UK is gonna be a team that will show great potential this year as well.
The top 4, I mean, I think there is one big surprise that everyone is calling in the chat on the top 4, and I wonder who's number 4? It's Hong Kong. And I feel this is probably the biggest upset of the tournament, I feel. Like, Hong Kong being top 4. Sure, they are a great team. They have always been a great team. They were seed 9 last year, in fact. And their Rise is insane. But, you know, top 4 is... It's quite challenging in a game of like this one, where, you know, you always have this like kind of 5 countries that are, you know, the all-time powerhouses of Mania 4K World Cup. And breaking through that, Hong Kong is doing history just on the qualifiers. We'll see if they can prove themselves across the bracket stage too.
Just an outstanding performance from Hong Kong. Maybe had a slight mishap when it did come to Hybrid 1, but even then, still showing that they are capable of being just how they perform, just really showing why they seeded 4th. And I think maybe even that hybrid one might have just made them a small bit shy of getting our podium, which we will actually move on to now. Really can't wait to see how this team performs.
Yep, that's a great show here by Hong Kong, and hopefully we'll see them progress. Ideally, I mean, I would love to see a Hong Kong top 3 finish for the tournament. They were just slightly behind compared to the top 3 teams. They were very close nonetheless. Especially the battle for top 1 and top 2 was insanely close, but number 4 and number 3 was also really close. I feel Hong Kong pushing it a little bit with Hybrid 1. Maybe they had a little bit more gas in the tank for the lens. I feel they could have done slightly better there, and they could have made it to the top 3, but not quite. They'll have to wait and fight their way through on the bracket stage. But even still, I would love to see this team on the grand finals. That would be sick. But hey,
all right,
number 3, as people is calling in the chat mostly, I feel, this is South Korea, improving from 4th to 3rd this time. And talking about history in Mania World Cup, you just have to talk about Korea. That's just how it is. This time around, with Poka, Boost-chan, Citra, Amyiji, GGX, and Nad. I mean, this team is screaming talent.
Definitely showing that really great potential. As always, South Korea, definitely a well-known country in any OSU World Cup. Just in general, pretty much. And just looking at those scores definitely prove why they have been the powerhouse they've always been since our first iteration. Seed 3, 6, and 3 overall. Might have just been a bit shy with some of those slider mishaps, but hey, it might have just been a slight trip that might have caused a few 200s many, but still, South Korea can definitely hold their own when it comes to pretty much anything.
Absolutely, and I'm very curious to see how they fare on the bracket stage, really, because South Korea is always a team that, you know, when it comes to the head-to-head matchups, they just overperform so often. And I feel this is a year that they can surprise. I feel the competition this year, albeit being fairly close, South Korea is mostly going to be, I think, the dominant force outside of the top 2. Like, showing that they got 3rd for a reason. I feel this is the team to put your money in to get into the podium. But if I have to be honest, top 2 seems like it's on a league on its own. Really, they've been 6K average points ahead of South Korea and every other team. Both teams are already being mentioned in the chat, the USA and China. The 2 teams to manage to get on seed 1 and seed 2. They both rocking a 2986.4 plus average score. And when I said that the surprise of the tournament was looking like Hong Kong, I cannot leave behind that I feel what's going to happen now. It may be more surprising to some people. Because seed number 2, against some odd, it's the United States of America. Ladies and gentlemen, US is not the first seed this year. China manages to out-qualify them somehow, but US still is the strongest team in LNs in terms of seeding, and it's mostly off the back of choking Rise 1 so hard. Like, US, I feel in paper, is the strongest team, but they just couldn't get the Rise 1 run going for them.
USA pretty much needs no explanation. As you were saying, that slight mishap on Rise 1 potentially did cost their way into getting the gold this year. But definitely on paper, they are still not a team to underestimate at all. They just show really good potential. Just looking at all these players, actually seeing Minwoo as well, gonna be making their debut into the United States Mania World Cup team. Definitely showing that really good potential as well, and I, for one, am really excited to see how the USA will perform again this year, seeing if they will still be able to hold on to that title of OSU Mania 4-Key World Cup champions.
Indeed, that Rise 1 really, it's the thing that pushes US down and instead puts on the number 1 spot no other than Team China. who got seed number 2 last year, and now they're getting seed number 1. And they got second pretty much in every map, because US got first on pretty much every other map. Hybrid 1, of course, being their highlight here with the only number 1 score they achieved this year, and it's really just the difference in Rise 1 that is putting them ahead, I feel. And don't get me wrong, this team is crazy solid, like 2992, 2993, 2992. That's just insane. Like, that's just how it is. And I feel like China in general is looking like an anticipated final, really. Like, it will be very surprising to me not to see China and the US on the grand finals. They really look like they are above everybody else by a bit. But we'll have to see, of course. We've seen upsets before. I don't think there are, any weaknesses to these two teams. They are the two best teams in the tournament. But we've seen the US can choke sometimes. So potentially there's some light there for some other teams to capitalize off. But China looking like the most consistent team across the board. And that's why they are seed number 1.
I think China and the United States just really have to push themselves to the limit if they do want to take the gold for this year. And I think China definitely had that more well-rounded seeds, while USA still having 5 number 1s did have that slight falter on Rise 1, so definitely kind of has to focus on that consistency still, even knowing that their consistency is still really strong. But again, we're just going to have to see how they perform when it does come to the next few weeks as well. So with that, seed number 1, I guess that will conclude our seeding reveal.
Absolutely. And we're getting called from the booth saying that we're taking too long. I feel like this is just how Mania does the things, right? We are well known for having, Oh my, I have soundboards on, I forgot. But never mind. That's something we're going to talk about later. Don't worry about it. Mania is well known for having, this huge mod post and long explanations for everything. And yeah, that's what we are. And we love to have longer showcases. That's it. 30 minutes over schedule. But hey, you guys enjoyed it, didn't you? I hope you did. In any case, that's going to be it, at least for me. I feel it's also for you, Nico, right? We have to introduce our fellow casters for the Mapo Showcase.
Yeah, that's going to be it for me. And again, once again, really thank you, Juan, for being with me in the casting booth. But now we do have to depart until next week, so I guess we can just dip for now and introduce our 2 commentators for the Map Pool Showcase round of 32. It is going to be none other than Mifa and Mint.
Hello everyone, my name is Mint and I'm going to be commentating for the round of 32 Map Pool Showcase. I'm really excited for everyone to see these maps. We worked really hard on them. And hello Mifa, my co-commentator. I'm very excited. This is your first time seeing these maps, correct?
Yes, hello everyone. Yep, and I'm Mifa, and I'm really excited. I'm really ecstatic to see how the map will actually turned out for all of the players that are definitely going to be involved in the earlier rounds. For at least at this stage of the game, showcases has been kind of the ritual that a lot of people will be seeing, like fresh new maps, fresh new content. That will be it will be really interesting to see how it plays out.
Absolutely, and I'm really excited to get into it. I don't know if we're going to jump right into it, but hopefully we can see the first map pop up on screen right now.
Yeah, should be once we're prepared to do so. A lot of the when I saw a bit of the content being revealed, it's I'm really excited to see, because we have couple new names, but this time we're gonna be jumping right into the first map here. We're gonna have Love Potion by Sanan Kaguryu. That on your chest, and then this is our stream pick.
Absolutely, so our stream pick, this clocks in at about 294 BPM. It's pretty straightforward with a few mini trills scattered here and there. I wouldn't say it's very stamina draining either. It's very straightforward, gives you a lot of breaks. Very, I guess I'm looking for a word that's the opposite of demanding here. That's what this is.
Yeah, it's not like around 147 at 30-second stream, which is equivalent to about 294. Which a lot of people might seem that might be a little on the faster side, but just because it is. Although some of it are not continuous streams, so you kind of have some composure and regaining your footing once you got to the non-stream sections. But this is kind of what it is.
For sure, we do get some small breaks in the 294 BPM streams, but overall, it's fairly consistent in the chorus. And yeah, we just kind of get, it's very flowy, it doesn't really have any intrusive sort of patterns, it's all just streams, pretty much. Yeah, there's nothing more really to the map, it just kind of, it kind of flows, you know, it's kind of in the groove.
Yeah, pretty much. I would say that I believe like in some cases this might be like one of the more, I guess, more popular picks if they are to more of the strength demanding teams that is just trying to maybe outact in some cases. But this is also like the streams by itself is not frequently just like flowy. There's some embedded mini trails and sometimes just interrupted with a few almost staircase in some way, like 1 2 3 2 1 patterns like that.
For sure, but overall, that's like more or less what you'd expect with Rice 1 nowadays, at least, I think. Early game, definitely, it's a step up, I would say, from previous years, but nothing too out of the ordinary, I would say, for expectations overall. We're gonna get to 300 BPM next round.
Yeah, this is on the almost the upper bounds of limit of the stream. I guess in terms of speed, which 294 sounds faster, but all players gonna have to contend with it for sure.
For sure, and now we're moving into Rice 2, which is Citrus Heaven Station by JH05013. This one's really interesting. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so this is charted by JH, like as you said before. This is one of my fellow FFR peers because apparently I didn't know that they made content for this Mania World Cup, so shoutouts to them. You know, this is their very first chart appeared in Mania after all. A jump stream pick, 225 BPM. Very popular, that is, because this is what most people are going to be sharpshooting at.
Absolutely, I do agree with that. This is our only jump stream pick for the Rice slots. And so I expect this map to be fairly popular. The only reason that people wouldn't pick this is probably because either their opponent is more like physically oriented than them, or they are a little bit scared of these one-handed trills. We see a lot of these one-handed trills in this map, as well as the bursts. Those are also somewhat chokeable. If you're not really super physically oriented, this is definitely a map to look out for.
Yeah, some of it are just jump streams, but then there's also some kind of at least one or two instances of few bursts like that one, which might not be super trivial, but it can trip you up definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And this map, just to note, it is very short, so it's not exactly a stamina-oriented pick in any sense of the word. So there's nothing really to worry about for stamina or even consistency. It's a very short pick, so it's just jump stream. Just have fun.
Yeah, it just goes all the way, especially at, I guess in terms of stamina might not be one of the key concerns about them. It's just making sure that you can hit the patterns just right.
For sure, and for the eagle-eyed viewers out there who have been paying attention to MWC for a few years now, you'll notice that this map is somewhat of a spiritual successor to Blessia's Cosmo Station from 2023 quarterfinals. So just an interesting parallel there. It's a similar song from the same artist, and it's also jump stream. So just for those of you who are not super in the know, this is a little fun sprinkle of facts there. And yeah, moving on to Rice 3. This is Chord Jack. We have Nobore Susume Takaito. And this is mapped by Ababa, also known as Ice Dynamics, and this is probably our longest pick. This is where our consistency is. You'll see pretty much pretty soon why this map is considered to be our chord jack consistency pick because it basically there's sort of a climax theory here going on where the map starts off fairly easily and then it gets much more difficult towards the end. It is 142 BPM. Don't be alarmed, it does not get super dense, but it does get tricky, and that is the key for this.
Quite a bit of a nostalgic song to pick out of for being a chord jack chart, but here's what I thought about being tricky, because there are some kind of like embedded like 3-note jacks in one column, and in some cases it might actually transition to a little bit of a, I guess, janky transitions in some cases.
Yeah, kind of. You have some awkward 3-note jacks. Their placement is very. I would say it is. If you're not used to those kinds of patterns, you'll definitely need to practice this map for sure. Like these kinds of patterns with 3-note jacks, they're just kind of everywhere, and there's more and more 3-note jacks that appear as you go through the map. Of course, this song, as big Kikuo fans will know, it's about climbing a tall tower, and it gets more and more intense as the song goes on. So the map was kind of designed with that in mind.
I suppose, yeah. I guess it's I guess I wouldn't want to say that this is backloaded in some way, but it's just how it is. Like the song kind of builds in it by itself.
For sure, and I would say backloaded maybe even with, well, without its negative connotation. I would say it's an apt term for this map for sure, because of the way that it builds towards the ending. And yeah, like these patterns are somewhat trivial to most players, I would assume, but then it's like really tricky if you like start to autopilot and then you miss on a 3-note jack. It happens all the time.
Introducing more hands into the equation, especially more occasional 3-note jacks. Like even in like some of the inner columns, I would assume that this would be it could be quite problematic to sharpshoot. Now with more hands.
Yeah, we're getting more hands. We're gonna get quads soon. We're almost there. Oh, here they come. Yes! I love this pattern. It's so bouncy.
Okay, I might check that back. I thought it was gonna be like backloaded or something. Maybe it is actually.
Oh yeah, as I said, like backloaded for sure, but without its negative connotation. I think it really does fit this song very well, and I think it fits the kind of mood that we want to encapsulate with a early game chord jack, as chord jack is. This is technically a new slot, at least compared to last year, so we definitely want it to feel sort of like new and refreshing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're jumping straight into this time. You know what it is. This is a technical pick right out from the get-go. This is charted by two of my FFR peers here, Pizza 69 and VisD, or Alien Carp, some people might have known. And this is Cold Storage by Terminal 11.
Whoa, a Pizza 69 map and Terminal 11, who would have guessed, man? This is, I mean, there's nothing really in this map that you don't expect from a Terminal 11 chart, except that it's in round of 32. This is probably the first time we've had something like this in round of 32. It's not really, I mean, it does have some 3-note jacks here and there. It's relatively constant, I would say. It's fairly, like, it just keeps going, and the patterns don't necessarily spike. They just, you know, there's a tension that I think the song really also helps there. The tension kind of builds throughout the song.
It's pretty much stop and go, yeah. Like it's just not dense or spiky or anything. It's just you kind of have to get through the whole motion from, I guess, 2.5 minutes of this, which, you know, I guess in some cases. Players in FFR might gonna hate grinding this now, especially in the Mania World Cup, but I guess good news for you that this is also cut from the actual FFR chart, although kind of funny that the song is like cut version, but this is still cut from the cut version.
Yeah, I believe the cut version was something like 4 minutes, and then we had to cut that down even more, so yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's fairly light, all things considered. There's some tricky parts, like two consecutive mini jacks on the same hand. but nothing really to worry about. You get these like little flam bits of boing 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 kind of sound. Like it's just very flowy. It feels pretty nice to play with the song. I don't know. There's nothing really much to say here. It's a Turn 11 tech pick by Pizza69. I guess there's nothing really you can say beyond
I guess
that.
in some way, if you hated Cold Heart from like last year in the semifinals, then you probably don't like this one either.
Yeah, I would say, well, compared to Cold Heart, this is definitely a lot more manageable. Especially since we're using around 32, I would hope that it's more manageable. For those of you not familiar, Cold Heart was Pizza's Turn 11 chart in 24 semifinals. So this was last year, and it was in a much higher round. So, yeah, that's Cold Storage, and I guess we're going to jump right into the second miscellaneous rice chart, which is Kansaete Kuyashi wa by Disguise. This is a cut version, again. This is our dump map. This is primarily focused on, I would say, like Minijack's Gluts at 150 with a bunch of streams and short bursts sprinkled around. Yeah, overall, very comfy map. Let's just, honestly, yeah, me probably to say that.
Yeah, I mean, somewhat similar structure-wise to the Stage 7 on the qualifiers that we've seen just before, like last week. Although, this has some emphasis on more of the running many patterns, rather than just straight-up vocal dumps to the bursts. Like, you saw, like, one of the couple, like, one-handed shows, but then it kind of just make go flow the other way around. It kind of goes with the theme of this chart, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely, and just for those of you keeping track at home, this is the shortest map of the pool, clocking in at 145. It's very short, but it definitely packs a punch, so you definitely go. A single miss could do a lot of damage to your scores. You definitely want to watch out for that.
Definitely one of the hardest to score on. I mean, especially when you're against like the higher seeded teams, especially when you kind of just have to focus on combo more than anything. Sharpshooting is kind of like disadvised at best because the patterns are. It's just quite hard.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, we get these little jacks, little trills thrown in throughout the entire map, and it definitely keeps you on your toes, that's for sure. But it's over before you know it, and you know it, when it ends, you're kind of like, I wish that was a little bit longer, and then you're moving on to the next pick. So yeah, that's pretty much the Rice 5. We're moving on to Rice 6. It is Cosmic Crisis by Autotelic Brown. This one it's very mini-jack heavy, I would say. A lot of 3-note jacks as well. That's something to watch out for. I guess it's like a mini Ichiyaku for those of you who were paying attention to qualifiers. It's a lot of those 3-note jacks, especially in comparison to the other charts. This is very interesting pick. I really curious.
Yeah, it just kind of doesn't fit into the category of technical because it just. A lot of a test of it is just the transitions in between the jacks, which it's kind of problematic if you kind of don't have that kind of finesse on dealing some of the transitions in this.
Yeah, for sure, and it's very. I would say like it's very sparse in terms of just like it doesn't have like a constant difficulty in the same way that maybe Cold Storage has. And the difficulty comes in like really short bursts, as you can see here, and you really have to keep an eye out of these like really short patterns, since like the smallest drop could really damage your score.
Yeah, we got quite a bit of a, I guess, break to regaining composure, but then it's just like once. The denser parts, that is. You just get back into it after that.
Yeah, I mean the second half is, I guess, more of the same. We get more bursts here, more 3-note jacks. It gets pretty rough. I think towards the end there's some patterns that definitely you should watch out for, but nothing that's too out of the ordinary. At least if you're used to the first half. So honestly, like there's these gluts here, like
Yeah, rather harsh OD to come along with it as well. It's not your typical like OD8 for like most of the technical fix this time around, but I guess it's only fair to have it like a higher OD just to test a little bit more in such a sharpshooting.
Absolutely, this is definitely our accuracy-oriented tech pick for sure, I would say. Like, there's... well, yeah, definitely, like, this is, like, less of a consistency test, more of an accuracy test, 100%. And yeah, with that, that was Rice 6, and that basically concludes our Rice pool, which means we are moving into hybrids. And hybrid 1 is Oathhaven. I got that right, let's go. By High
Should be. Yeah, this is one of the past Osu originals on the 2023, which I think you've seen this in like the 17 in 2024, and yet here we are again. We're getting a lot more use in this one, especially you know, we can't get enough of this.
Yeah, this song, I mean, I wanted to have this song featured in MWC as soon as the original got released in OWC 2023. It was a long time ago, around 2 years ago. And I'm really happy that we have it featured now. This is a really, really interesting chart. We have these sort of like polyrhythm things here, and then we have like kind of like sort of density patterns. It's definitely a very Ellen density focused out of our hybrid picks, but that doesn't mean, of course, that the Rice is anything to be overlooked. The Rice, there's some very tricky bursts scattered throughout, in between LNs, or on its own, like as we see here, these little streams here in the breaks sort of section. Yeah, this map is overall is fairly diverse for a hybrid one, I would say.
It's fairly diverse, but also it's like the patterns by itself isn't particularly tricky in terms of the variety sake. Although we've seen like a couple of LNs that are just not limited to just like releasing like these kind of things. It's just like semi-inverse at best. But then everything else is just Rice that is pretty much yours. I guess your standard Rice patterns, which kind of runs along with the theme of being on the longer side, I guess.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, for sure. Hybrid 1, I mean, we usually don't have, they're usually not this long, but I would say the map, it makes you feel like it's not that long, so it's kind of over before you know it, honestly.
And I guess after a little bit of the last quarter, I believe we have a little bit more of the reprise of the Rice patterns after we get to most of the hybrid sections, which should be a little bit of a decider if you're actually choking on one of the Rice patterns later on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those 1-6 bursts definitely will catch players off guard if you're not practicing, if you're not used to this sort of that sort of pattern in hybrid ones. But I would say it kind of follows in the footsteps of Susanoo Habakiri from the Qualifiers, so it's nothing really. Yeah, it's pretty close to what you'd expect, I would say.
Yeah, it definitely served its purpose. Although I would say that in terms of Osu original, it's definitely has done its job, especially for having diverse pattern like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of Osu originals, we got something special for you.
This has to be different, so let's catch it together.
Yeah, and that was round of 32 Hybrid 2 Oumuamua by Muyu. It's a somewhat not very well known artist, I would say. They have like maybe 5 maps on Osu total. I found them through Twitter and they were like absolutely amazing. Their music completely blew me out of the water. I immediately requested we had to get them. And so I'm really happy that we finally got them for 2025. I'm really excited for you guys to just dig in the song and the map as well by Alexire. Very wonderful map there. It is a 139-ish BPM shieldy sort of Jackie hybrid with a little bit of flavor to it, as you saw with the jazz and the fusion and all that. Credit where credit is due, of course. Creameries for the illustration, Zeth for graphic design, Red CXCA and Panthulu for design QA, and Sakura006 as always for video and design coordination. Thank you so much to the design team, and thank you so much to Muyu for making such wonderful music for us.
Absolutely. Thanks for pretty much all the hard work that they have put a lot of effort and putting this together into, well, one of the few, I guess, from the originals for this particular 4Q World Cup. And gotta say though, even like talking about the map itself, the patterns feels like Water Lily-esque, because I mean it's by the same mapper, of course, but this is like another level.
That's the comparison I would make for sure. Yeah, and anyways, like the song, it is based on Oumuamua, which is the first discovered interstellar object that passed through our solar system. It is a Hawaiian name, so that is it's pretty interesting. This very sort of like a planetary like sort of design here. That's what we're going for. And yeah, I guess there's nothing really more to say about that. I guess we can move on to Hybrid 3.
Yeah, Hybrid 3 is going to be quite a bit of a curveball here. We got Distant Relatives by Taishi. This is a collab chart by Scotty and Outrom. And this is our technical hybrid, which I guess in some people you have known both of those charters, and being put together is kind of wild to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a very rare mapper collaboration combination. I mean, Scotty and Outrom, who would have thought that these two mappers would have been able to collab on something, if not for MWC. Really excited about this one. It's probably one of my favorites in the map pool. It's just a very interesting map overall. It's definitely not what you'd expect in round of 32, that's for sure. It's very much like Introduction Bygone, which was Outrom's map in round of 16 last year. It is slightly easier, though I will say it is actually, it might be, players might find this one a little bit difficult, to be honest, at least compared to the other hybrids. So that's definitely something to look out for.
Yeah. There's a clear distinction in between the Wave Heaven and then the Osu original that we saw back to back before. So there's a clear difference in terms of the layering was structured in this. This is just more freeform, if for the lack of a better word.
For sure, yeah. I would say freeform is a pretty apt descriptor for this one. But yeah, as we get into the back half, which is, in my opinion, where most of the difficulty lies, we're gonna get into a sort of very tight Ellen burst kind of situation here. These Ellens are really tricky. Their releases they play so interestingly, but you really have to watch out for every little release. It is so difficult, but manageable for around a 32 standard. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, welcome to prequel introduction Bicon, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah, introduction, I suppose. Yeah, and these bursts here, I mean, we're closing out the map here, and getting one small Ellen burst in before the ending there. Wanna throw in his last little punch before the map ends fully.
I would expect that this would be picking like the kind of like the last 3 or 4 pick scenario, in which this is really as wildcard as it could be for a hybrid.
For sure, it's definitely not something you'd expect in round 32, but yeah, let's just move on to LN1. This is Kuchu Bunkai by Fivrex. It's very interesting sort of map here. We have sort of a different approach from last year's Ellen coordination in round 32. We're just gonna jump straight into the sort of like vocal flow Ellen coordination instead of kind of easing it in the early game. So we're just gonna jump straight into it. Yeah, we're gonna have like these sorts of like sort of slower jacks and flams, and that's just pretty much what you'd expect from a mid-game LN qualifier, just a little slower. So yeah, more or less just that.
Yeah, no funny business in terms of patterning. Like you would normally see these just faster in terms of qualifiers, but we're just taking things slower. And if you have the capability of handling slower but similar patterns, that is.
For sure. I mean, yeah, it is all just a matter of managing these sorts of slower LN coordination patterns. I mean, it's not too dissimilar to Boost Anima, which was last year's round of 16 LN1, and I would say that I think this is definitely easier. It is slower by about 8 BPM, and the patterning, I would say, is definitely more forgiving. There's no like weird like anchory stuff going on that Boost Anima had, but this map it definitely packs its punch. It just doesn't really have anything that is too standoutish in terms of like if you're trying to sharpshoot a play and you're like a really good Ellen coordination player and you're very used to these sorts of patterns.
Yeah, if you're just very comfortable with this, then you can just pretty much get that score consistency just pretty much up there in just a few couple of tries. You can get the bearings on it pretty easily, I feel.
Yeah, and the map sort of ends with like these sorts of like 1-6 bursts, very short bursts. It's definitely something to watch out for. But yeah, it is kind of funny, I would say.
Yeah, that will be the LN coordination pick, and moving on, we got VTuber. That is indeed a VTuber.
Yes,
that is
VTuber, LN Density VTuber. We have Mata Aoi by Minato Aqua, mapped by Yuista.
Yeah, formerly known as UEast 2018, and you most likely have to expect that LN Density is just semi-inverse shenanigans and mostly just very streamy based patterns. You got that all right in here.
Yeah, absolutely. And Minato Aqua is a VTuber who graduated from Hololive around last year, so this map is meant to pay tribute to their VTuber. Yeah, let's keep it at that. A fairly straightforward LN density at 185 BPM. It is very light. I would say it's not very inversey. It's for sure. That's probably the way I would just describe it. It's very light. And yeah, but it is more continuous than the Spray Rigid Girl from last year. A little bit faster as well. But I wouldn't say it's easier or harder per se. It's just a little bit different, I would say. And more along the lines of what you'd be used to in later games.
Yeah, there's still some few gaps in between of the, I guess, more of the coordinated streams in terms of density, but that's just how it is. It's structured kind of similar to that, except for the fact that you kind of have to be careful on overholding some of these stuff because it's not full inverse, or it's just in some way just gonna trip you up if you are overholding in some cases.
Absolutely, yeah. You definitely want to watch out for that. And I think it's definitely something to keep in mind that this map is also a little bit, well, I wouldn't say long, it's like medium length. 230 is pretty typical for a density pick, I would say.
It's just more of the same thing. It just happens in the even in the last quarter. So you just kind of have to brace yourself for some more of the kind of these semi-inverse almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And just getting more similar patterns here. I do think it gets slightly denser here at the end, but I'm not sure by how much. It's probably not by much. And yeah, just more or less the same sorts of patterns here. This map, I wouldn't say it's a consistency test, but it definitely, you definitely want to watch out for, like, you don't want to autopilot this map, that's all I'll say. Like, because there's definitely some very tricky sort of patterns here that you definitely want to keep your eye on.
Yeah. Let's see what we got for the other LN pick that we have been previously missing on the other density and coordination. So we got a little bit of a curveball. Night Theater Wakadori. This is charted by UCSM, but also with the, I believe, with a collab with Hightex as well. So
this is a collab with Hightex. Yes, that's correct.
This is a bit of a, I guess, a little bit of a step up in terms of complexity, because not only we get some more of the coordination, we just got more embedded mini jacks in some places on the LNs.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's relatively straightforward, sort of shieldy LN map. We got some tricky sort of patterns here and there. Definitely might be the hardest LN map out of the three, I would say. But it's definitely nothing to worry about, honestly. It's pretty simple. You just really got to get used to these sorts of, like, I would say awkward shield sort of patterns. But yeah, it is pretty constant throughout the map, and I mean, the song is a banger, so it's honestly pretty chill.
Bonus points for that, for sure. Especially, I guess shieldy patterns tend to be a little bit easier to handle in terms of sharpshooting, although I could be in the minority here, but it's still definitely very flowy, even with some of the abrasive, I guess, bursts and some of the shield patterns this got.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, aside from the shields, we do have some, like, these brace notes and bursts, as you said, and I mean, the chorus kind of packs a punch here. It kind of brings it all together at the end here, with sort of like everything that we've seen kind of mixed together. And yeah, kind of ending it out with some more jazz, as you know, I mean, lovely, lovely jazz.
With some couple a little bit
Oh
more
yeah,
of
these
the
bursts,
grace
those
like
bursts
that,
you
yeah.
gotta watch out for those, 100%, yeah.
Could be a decider if you're actually autopilot and tunnel vision way too
Yeah,
hard
for
on it.
sure. Yeah, that's definitely, you gotta watch out. I think that's a kind of a theme for the round 32 maps. You kind of almost can autopilot it, but then you can't. So that's definitely sort of a running theme for round of 32. I think that throughout the entire pool even. And I guess that's everything for the regular pool. It seems it's time for our tiebreaker, ladies and gentlemen and others. This is a very exciting sort of last pick here. This is Eternity. Yeah. This was featured in CWC 2025. There were the grand finals, and we're using it in round of 32. Not sorry.
Yeah, well, this is just before we already had the 4K World Cup, and then we already being reintroduced this back in. This is also charted not by one person. This is a 4-person collab. This is charted by Mint, and Crystalline or Serenade for most people, JH, and also High 19, which, what a kind of a, unlikely collab to ever introduce them.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is a very exciting collab. I mean, big shout outs to my fellow collaborators, Chrysler JH05013, and High19. And you'll be seeing their names popping up at the bottom there. It's a little dark, it's a little hard to see, but you know, it's there, it's there. It's probably the hardest round of 32 tiebreaker in MMC 4K so far.
I guess your mileage may vary, but I feel like this would be the densest one out there in terms of how it actually structured, especially with the collaborators to tackle this chart in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot. It's a lot of 200 BPM patterning, so a lot of LN sort of density patterns, but also a lot of mini jacks, a lot of dumps. It's just very, very focused sort of song. So it's got a lot of 200 BPM patterns. So, like, definitely not as much variety as you could expect for a tiebreaker, but
Long jack.
it's definitely still a lot. Yeah, the long jack. You definitely got to watch out for the long jack. 100%. It's pretty crazy. Okay, so yeah, it honestly, from the feedback from the playtesters, we can probably say it is fairly stamina draining, and that's probably the biggest concern for the players running into this chart. It's super stamina draining. It really, really packs a punch throughout the entire map. Yeah, as we're getting into the next 200 BPM section, we're getting these little sort of mini jacks here, jumping straight into a sort of mixed sort of coordination patterning into dump mini jack, and it just kind of goes around and around in a circle, repeating those sorts of three.
Oh, that verse is
that verse is really
case.
rough. It's really one-hand trilly. It's really tricky. Definitely something to watch out for. Yeah, and as we get into this next section, I believe it is going to be a JH section. This part, we have some light, it's a lighter section, light mini jacks and light, sort of, these, we get to see these anchored sort of long notes throughout the map. It is, I would say, a motif throughout the map. And we get this a slow jam section. This part is really weird. We have sort of like wump, wump, dump, wub, sort of like jack, hybrid, something's happening here, I don't know. It's very weird.
Oh
I
yeah,
would say.
that anchor in some of the trill into
Absolutely.
a shield.
Yeah, this part's really tricky, and the fact that it just switches back and forth, the song definitely helps there, but it is very, very tricky there.
Oh, this goes a little bit of a spike in terms of dump now. It's just embedded into some of the mini jacks in between.
Yeah, and we're getting into a gradual speed up section here. This is definitely probably one of the more intense sections of the map, as we'll see these like the mini jacks here, they speed up and it gets faster and faster until you can't keep up anymore, and then it gets even faster.
Yeah, just imagine the speeding up mini jack while you have
Hold
to
on.
contend with
I
other
want
things.
this part right here.
Yeah.
Oh, how
welcome
satisfying is that?
Welcome to Run of 32 Tiebreaker.
Yeah, and now we're sort of getting into another back and forth section with sort of like light density into like tech. It just again very very mixed sort of bag here at the end.
A little bit more of the same, although now the jacks are kind of a little bit more aggressive in terms of the structure, especially with the shielding happening in between.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right about this being a very aggressive structure. It gets even more difficult right here as we get into Chrysler's final boss section here with the complete LN density here with the long LNs and the trills, the one-hand trills. This part it just really kills your stamina, honestly, at least if it hasn't been killed already.
Oh, there's the best one already. Just before.
Oh yeah, the miss from our replay, unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is. Yeah, we get into this final jack section,
wow, okay.
into a burst section. Yeah, that part is, it packs, it just packs everything together at the end. And then we get like another burst section here, I believe. This part. Ooh. Yeah, the mini jacks. Yeah,
well,
gotta have
alright.
the last few bursts. Yeah, you gotta have those. You really gotta have those. And
Quite
yeah.
Quite a
Well,
bit
that was-
step
yeah.
up for a round of 32 tiebreaker, that is.
Absolutely, it's a massive step up, and only right for that to be the case when the players are just getting so good, man. And anyways, yeah, that was the tiebreaker, and that was the conclusion of our round of 32 map pool showcase. I believe scheduling materials have already gone out. So all players, captains, keep an eye out for your scheduling with your opponents. And viewers, we'll see you next weekend. I believe starting probably early Saturday. We'll be having some round of 32 matches for you guys. And hope you look forward to those in due time. Thank you everyone for watching. Yeah, Mifa, any last words?
Yeah, gotta say though, good luck to every other players out, every players out there that are, especially for playing in a round of 32 map pool. Especially, a lot of it is gonna come down to if you're very physically capable of handling a lot of these stuff, you're gonna be in a lot of ride, especially if we're battling against like other teams, especially for in this round of 32. It's really exciting to see how the matches would turn out in the end.
Absolutely, and I guess with that being said, that's pretty much it. At least as far as I'm concerned. I've said everything I need to say, and hopefully you've said everything you need to say, and so I guess we can close out the stream. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you later. Goodbye!
This has been Mifa Edman, and we're signing off. See you next week.